With the growing quantity of women on their phones all day long, it may be harder to catch her attention when you try to make the first move. But in this video, you will discover why it can be easier than you thought to get on a date, even with a girl who looks like she does not have time. And to first rewind slightly on my situation back in the day before I mastered this skill, because I know what it feels like, I have been there, and I was just sitting in a bar, for example, waiting and waiting and waiting, trying to gather the confidence to finally approach. And I was maybe trying to make some joke to some nearby groups to try to gather some more courage. But then I would just sit there and do nothing. And when I was seeing a woman I really liked, I didn't really have the confidence to approach at all. At best, maybe I would make one joke that would get her to laugh, but then I would just not know how to escalate and go on from there. I think the main reason I was stuck there was because I was trying mentally to figure out the best possible line to say. Whether it was in a nightclub, in a bar, or in the streets, I would just stare around like this and look around and try to figure out the perfect hypnotic line that would get her to stop her mind as I talked to her. But the more I was trying to find the perfect way of introducing myself, the worse it was getting, because the fear, the nervousness, and the anxiety was accumulating in me. So in the end, I would just stay paralyzed and hoping that at some point maybe I would figure out the right thing to say. But if you compare that to my situation right now, what does it look like by now? If I see somebody I like, I just instantly change my attitude. Not something I have to force anymore, it is just part of me by now. My attitude automatically switches when I see her, and even my voice tonality is changing when I start interacting with her. And that can happen even if I had a shitty day, even if I was not in the mood, that is still planted here. So I no longer fear what she might say, how she might reject me, and I no longer fear any outcome that might happen. Oh, people around are gonna listen to me, what are they gonna think? None of that is affecting me anymore, it has gone out of my mind. And due to that different state, due to that inner change from me, then I know I can change her state too in a few seconds just after saying hello or whatever the hell I say. I can change, at least alter her state, even if she was not in the state to listen to me because she looked busy, she was on her phone, whatever happens, I can still lead her state out of that bubble of focus she was into at that moment. And the way I developed that, and this is the topic of this video, is something I call the thought snapping approach, or the thought snapping method. When you calibrate her state so well that you can always adapt your language patterns and the things you say and your behavior to the state she is in at the moment you approach her. Because your entire behavior and mental projection is creating a pattern interrupt at the moment you approach. So it doesn't really matter what you say, even though I will talk about some specific language patterns, but in the end, even if you say the most random shit ever, that can still work because you have mastered the proper way of interrupting her trail of thoughts when you approach and get her attention focused on you. And that is a massive skill you can use also in a relationship. When your girlfriend is not listening to you at all, you can definitely interrupt her state to make her pay attention more carefully. For those of you who don't conceptualize yet what is a pattern interrupt, if you have studied anything about hypnosis, you probably came across the concept of the handshake interrupt. It is when you go to a handshake, to offer a handshake, but at the last second when the person is going to shake your hand, you just remove yours, and it creates a mental interruption because the natural sequence the person was accustomed to is no longer valid. So during the split second where this happens, their brain is in a kind of mental fog, and that's how you can plant a suggestion and get them into a trance. That was the concept of the handshake interrupt, but in a more general sense, any kind of move that is not conventional in her psyche can be used as an interruption or line she's not used to hearing. And the real secret to use that properly is to really calibrate at which level of attention she is before approaching. You don't have to figure out the perfect thing to say, but you have to figure out how interested she is or how not open-minded, but how open her attention is at the moment you are going to approach. That way you can alter the level of abrupt lines or the level of assertiveness or low-key dominance based on the stage she is in, and you can adapt that no matter how likely she would have been otherwise to talk to you. And down below in the description you can find a complete breakdown of how, for example, Ross Jeffries was using that method, or how you can understand what he was doing from a pattern interruption perspective. This is contained in the complete method I have called, therefore, the thought snapping approach, because every time you approach you can find the right language pattern to interrupt her state, and find the demonstrations in here that will show you exactly how you can adapt that no matter how beautiful she is, what she looks like, and how attentive she looks like before you approached. I have also provided in that method 7 language patterns I have used and developed myself, and also taught to many students who get great results with it. And those language patterns, please be careful, they're not really supposed to be used exactly in the way I lay them out in that method or in the videos you see on this channel. It is always about understanding the deeper psychological principle behind the words, so that you can capture and lead the state of your listener. It is always about figuring out what is going on in a general perspective, what is going on inside their head at the moment you speak, and then adapting your tonality, your behavior, and the way you speak and the words you use, so that it is capturing their imagination at the moment you start interacting with them, and how to lead that into a state you want them to be in. So if, for example, she is not interested at all, she does not want to listen to you, she does not want to hear you, then it is completely irrelevant to start a whole monologue or a whole opinion opener about what do you think about men and women in society in 2026. Forget about long scripts, simply find very short, brief language patterns that can capture her state with intrigue. And you will find down below exactly how to do this based on how she feels at the moment you approach. I have also provided a simpler strategy, what I think is a simpler strategy to make approaching part of how you live your life, how to simplify approaching, because most guys make such a big deal out of it that they just rehearse the scripts and in their head, and then they stay paralyzed at home, never trying anything, because they presuppose someday they will be ready. I show you exactly how to bypass that someday I will and transform that into today I can start this and that much more easily than by putting a big pressure on that. And you will also learn how to condition your mind to always remain in the right state, or at least how to never go down too low, so that whenever you are about to approach, you are already in a kind of mild state of energy. That way you can match her state or be just slightly above where she is in terms of energy. That way you capture her attention more easily. Finally, you will also discover why most guys fail no matter what they say, because quite often they are not in the right state, they are not conditioned in the right way, they still have a shit bag of limiting beliefs in the back of their mind, preventing them from being authentic when they approach. And once you have all of that foundation set up, all of those foundations, then yes, one specific language pattern to interrupt her state can be enough to get her hooked on you and get her more focused on what you say. That is maybe worse these days because of social media. So many people are just disconnected from reality. They no longer pay attention, but below the phone, below the tool, there is still a human being. And although their brain may have been altered by all the content they watch online and the form of that content with TikTok and stuff like this is still a human brain with loopholes that hypnosis has learned how to catch and utilize for decades, if not centuries, if you go back in the roots. So it is still possible to use that with a girl, even if she looks disconnected, she looks like she doesn't like you, she won't pay attention to you. There is still a way to catch her attention and then deliver whatever you want to deliver, so that she sees your real personality and not just some memorized scripts, but she can really see who you are below that fear. So you can find this complete method down below. It is called the thought snapping approach, 7 language patterns that you will have to adapt, but 7 language patterns to interrupt her emotional state, no matter what it is at the moment you approach, how to better calibrate your style based on how she feels, and reading from a distance how she feels. That way you no longer need to endure rejection so much. You may have a few in the beginning, but then quite easily you will notice that some girls are way easier to approach, even if they look like they are busy. Just because they look busy does not mean they won't pay attention to you. So you can learn how to differentiate who's someone you can approach and who's someone who is just a dead end, and then how to adapt your language to how she feels. That way it is way easier to make connections, to make the first contact, and you won't have to suffer from loneliness or any kind of disturbing girl who does not pay attention to you anymore. This is down below. Thank you very much for watching and see you soon in the next video.